I've been using a pre-released version of the Honor Magic 5 Pro since launch, and it's been incredible to say the least. I've now finally received a fully released global version of the device, and I am super excited to share my take with you guys today on Honor's best flagship yet. During MWC in Barcelona, I brought you guys my first impressions of the device, where I concluded that it has the ability to be a serious contender for Phone of the Year. Well, now it's time to see if that assumption stands strong in this detailed review of this beast of a smartphone. In typical Honor fashion, they have left nothing out the box. You get a jelly case, a charging cable, and even a 66-watt charging brick. This is TechNick, and this is my full review on Honor's record-breaking Magic 5 Pro. The device is about to hit shelves in the UK and Europe for £949 and €11.99 respectively, which is actually cheaper than the competition, especially considering it only comes in one variant, that being a whopping 12 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. Honor's latest flagship has certainly seen a facelift this year with an all-new design, and I must say it looks stunning. Just like its predecessor, it maintains a symmetrical design, but this time adds another level of detail. Its curves pays tribute to Antoni Gaudí, a Spanish architect known for his work in Barcelona. These curves, known as the Gaudí curves, surround the new camera module, which has been largely inspired by the first ever image of the black hole in our galaxy. This image has 3 bright spots, which is why Honor went with this equilateral triangular camera layout, which they like to call a star wheel pattern, and inherits the iconic Eye of Muse camera design. While the phone is quite curvy, you'll be happy to know that it now has flat edges on its sides, which are made from aluminum. It comes in just 2 color options in the global market. You can get it in either black, which has a glossy finish, or meadow green, which is what I have and has a matte-like finish which sparkles in the light and prevents fingerprint smudges. It comes in a bit thinner than its predecessor at 8.77mm, but a tad heavier at 219 grams. The device comes with the same IP68 dust and water rating we saw last year and packs in an anti-glare glass back and glass front, but its glass protection is still unknown. Speaking of the front panel, it still packs in an ultrasonic in-display fingerprint sensor as well as a TOF sensor for 3D face unlock, which is nice and secure, but in turn leads to a rather large pill-shaped notch. Needless to say, after months of use, I've gotten quite used to the notch. I mean, it is a compromise you have to be willing to take for 3D Face ID and superb selfie performance, which we'll get to a bit later on. The screen itself is also largely similar to last year. It's a 6.81-inch LTPO quad-curved floating display with a resolution that sits somewhere between QHD and Full HD and pushes out 461 pixels per inch. It has a 10-bit color depth, which means it can display over a billion colors and supports HDR10, HDR10+, and Widevine L1. Not to mention, it is IMAX enhanced as well. It's also one of the few flagships on the market that offer a 90Hz fixed refresh rate option in addition to the standard 60 and 120Hz options. And since it's an LTPO panel, it can dynamically adjust its frame rate between 1 and 120 FPS. One of the largest improvements this time is its bump in brightness, which is capable of reaching a crazy 1800 nits as opposed to last year's 1000 nits of peak brightness. Other new display features include a discrete display chip, which includes MEMC to improve the visual quality of moving images, a circadian night feature which auto-adapts color tones, dynamic dimming which adjusts brightness based on your current external lighting conditions, and most importantly brings PWM dimming, which is pulse width modulation dimming, all the way up to 2160 Hz as opposed to last year's 1920 Hz, which aids in minimizing eye strain and display ghosting. When it comes to software, the Magic 5 Pro makes use of MagicOS 7.1 skinned over Android 13, and Honor has promised 3 years of major Android software updates and 5 years of security updates. The software is elegant, fluid, very easy on the eye, and since it fully supports Google services in the global market, we are treated to Google Discover on the left of the home screen, Google Assistant, which can be used with an inward swipe gesture, and of course we also have full access to the Google Play Store. Other than Google, the software experience is in line with other 2023 flagships in terms of features such as large folders, a clean app drawer and notification panel, as well as plenty customization options, not to mention it has Honor Connect, which connects multiple devices together, as well as Magic Ring, which connects services across those devices. And to get you through the day is a massive 5100 mAh battery, which is significantly larger than last year's 4600 mAh capacity. It's just a pity that only the Chinese variant of this device packs in an even larger 5450 mAh silicon carbon battery. However, both the global and Chinese models have the same 66 watt wired charging and 50 watt wireless charging speeds, which is actually a bit of a downgrade over last year's Magic 4 Pro, which featured 100 watt wired and 100 watt wireless charging. Not only does the Honor Magic 5 Pro pack in the latest and greatest flagship chipset from Qualcomm, that being the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, but also packs in Honor's self-developed GPU Turbo X technology for a more stable gaming experience. But before we get to gaming, it's worth mentioning that the Magic 5 Pro is a powerhouse when it comes to benchmark results, and that's not only due to its flagship chipset, but also because of its other heavy-hitting specs, such as 12 gigs of fast LPDDR5X RAM, which can be further extended by an additional 7 gigs thanks to RAM Turbo, and 512 gigs of next-gen UFS 4.0 storage. All of these specs not only aid in daily tasks and high benchmark scores, but also lead to fantastic gaming performance, and thanks to its high refresh rate display, we were able to receive an average FPS of 120 while playing Real Racing 3. And when playing Call of Duty Mobile on ultra frame rate mode, we were able to get a solid 90 FPS on average, which most other devices with similar specs tend to cap at 60. And while playing more demanding games such as Genshin Impact, which has an FPS cap of 60, the device was able to maintain a stable 60 FPS on average even when we maxed out the game's graphical settings. This Honor flagship also makes use of Bluetooth 5.2, NFC, 5G, and Wi-Fi 7, so connectivity is no issue here. It has a standalone antenna architecture, separating antennas for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, which is actually an industry first, and this boosts Wi-Fi performance by up to 200% and reduces latency by up to 30%. Not to mention, it also packs in a USB 3.1 Type-C port, an IR blaster, rock-solid flagship haptics, as well as dual stereo speakers, one at the bottom and one at the top, which have been tuned by DTS:X Ultra. So the Honor Magic 5 Pro is fantastic at playing games and running benchmarks. It's not the outright best performer around, but it's in line with other phones that offer the same specs under the hood. What it does strive to be the best at, however, is camera performance. So let's kick things off with selfie camera performance. As I pointed out earlier, the Magic 5 Pro has a pill-shaped notch which sits at the top left corner of its display, and it's not just for 3D face unlock. That top 3D sensor is also for 3D depth mapping when taking portrait shots, and next to it sits an 18mm 12MP f2.4 100-degree field of view selfie camera, which is identical to last year, but we should see some improvements thanks to the new Qualcomm chipset, as well as Honor's own improved processing technique. And these improvements are evident in terms of exposure and clarity when switching between the different field of view levels, not to mention edge detection is rock solid in portrait mode.
What's up guys, this is TechNick recording a 1080p 60 FPS selfie video using the brand new Honor Magic 5 Pro, and you can zoom between 0.7x, 8x and 1x. Not to mention there is also 4K 30 FPS when using the selfie camera on the new Honor Magic 5 Pro. Of course you can also switch from 1x to 0.8x all the way out to 0.7x. Let me know your thoughts on the audio as well as the video quality when using the selfie cam to record video on the brand new Magic 5 Pro.
So selfie videos go all the way up to 4K 30 FPS and come out great even at night, but I found it odd that there is no portrait video mode option when using the selfie camera. Selfie photos come out impeccable at night too when night mode is enabled, things are warmer when the flash is on, and portraits come out filled with detail and phenomenal edge detection with a strong presence of background blur. There are very few Android phones out there that nail selfie photos and have the ability to record a 4K selfie video. The Honor Magic 5 Pro is one of those devices. But now it's time to set selfies aside and see what those back camera sensors are made of. It has a triple 50 megapixel setup, which is made up of a 13mm f2.0 122 degree field of view ultra wide camera, a 90mm f3.0 3.5 times optical zoom periscope telephoto camera, and the largest improvement here is no doubt the new 23mm f1.6 1 inch sensor sized main camera. The latter two both have optical image stabilization, and this camera system is rounded off with a TOF 3D laser focusing system for autofocus and depth mapping, a flicker sensor, and a multi-spectrum color sensor, which is found next to the yellow LED flash. The Honor Magic 5 Pro takes phenomenal shots when using its ultra-wide camera close-up for macro mode, which adds a great layer of depth too, far out when set to high-res 50 megapixel mode, and even improves dynamic range when binned down to 12.5 megapixels. Its main sensor takes an incredible shot too at high-res 50 megapixel mode of course, and is one of the best photos I have ever seen, and takes things to the next level when binned down to 12.19 megapixels, which should actually output higher than that when binned, but I did notice a slight crop in factor which explains the megapixel count. Using high-res 50 megapixel mode with the periscope camera at 3.5 times optical zoom level has this shot come out extremely clear, and when binning down to 12.5 megapixels, saturation is dialed back a bit, which results in a more realistic representation of the scene. It's also crazy how well the telephoto captures the moving birds with barely any ghosting. Zooming in by 10 times still looks fantastic and keeps everything in full focus, but things start to go south when zooming in by 30 times, 50 times, or even 100 times, which is the max zoom here. Honor have introduced smart motion sensing capture this year, and when enabled, it automatically takes a shot of a subject when doing something active. Honor actually paired up with Guinness World Records to use this feature in order to capture the world's highest between the legs slam dunk record. It sometimes misses a snap if you can't stop jumping around like me, which is understandable, but it's crazy just how clear shots come out. Taking a photo of an object with the main sensor makes for a pleasing shot, but shifting over to the aperture mode, which uses the main cam for a 2x lossless zoom capture, adds an incredible layer of depth to this photo with superb edge detection. Taking a snap of me comes out great too, and when set to portrait mode, background blur is fantastic, but it tends to dull my face down a bit. However, things are improved when set to 2x zoom in portrait mode using the main cam. But the periscope sensor seems to take the best portrait shots at 3.5x optical zoom, and even though there is no portrait mode option at this level, the shot comes out breathtakingly perfect with almost too much detail. There is also an option for bokeh video recording using the main cam, but is unfortunately capped at 1080p 24 FPS and can only be used within movie mode. However, it does a more than decent job of focusing on the subject and blurring the background even when set to 2x zoom. Slow motion video is limited to a maximum of 240 FPS, but can be shot in full HD resolution and results come out fairly good. Not to mention you can seamlessly switch between all three cameras when recording continuous 4K 30 FPS video from the ultra wide to the main to the periscope all the way up to 10x digital zoom. You can also use the ultra wide camera to record 4K video, though unfortunately the frame rate is capped at 30 FPS, even though most flagship devices can now shoot ultra wide video at 4K 60 FPS. But you can shoot 4K 60 FPS video using the main cam. It's fairly stable too, however there is no option for 8K video. Shooting 4K 30 FPS video at night using the main leads to some pleasing results due to that large sensor size. And there is also a super night video mode option, which brightens things up even more, but it does wash things out a bit and is limited to the main sensor at 1080p 24 FPS. Recording ultra-wide video at night comes out more than decent too, aside from being a bit grainy, but photos with the ultra-wide sensor at night come out crystal clear. Taking a snap with the main sensor at night looks even better due to that massive sensor, and while 3.5x optical zoom using the periscope handles light noise phenomenally well, it struggles to keep things blur free. At 10x zoom, things come come out quite clear, but light noise isn't handled as well. And just like when taking photos in the daylight, things start to get questionable after 30 times digital zoom. You can still make out what's going on here even at 50 times or 100 times max zoom, but there is no night mode option available for these zoom levels. Using the main sensor to take a pic of me at night looks brilliant, and portrait mode adds a nice subtle depth of field with great edge detection. 2 times portrait mode yields a similar result, though slightly more clear, but again using the periscope sensor for a 3.5 times optically zoomed photo looks the best in my opinion. It's just a pity there is no portrait mode option for the telephoto, leaving us with barely any depth of field. The Magic5 Pro not only takes the best photos and videos I have ever seen produced from an Honor flagship smartphone, but will no doubt be making other flagship camera smartphones sweat for the foreseeable future. Not only does it outdo itself in camera performance, but the Honor Magic5 Pro checks all the right boxes for a 2023 flagship and is already available in the global market. Let me know your thoughts on Honor's most incredible flagship to date in the comment section down below. This is TechNick, and I'll catch you in the next one.